Shabbat Shalom. Our scripture reading for today is Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven.
Shabbat Shalom family. Our selection today, Yahshua is the light.
That shineth in me. Yahshua is the light that shineth in me, that shineth in me. He'll show out in me, he'll show out in me, he'll show out in me, he'll show out in me. Yahshua is the light that shineth in me, that shineth in me. Yahshua is the light that shineth in me, that shineth in me. He'll show out in me, he'll show out in me, he'll show out in me, he'll show out in me.
If I walk the way he wants me to walk,
He'll show up in me, he'll show up in me.
If I talk the way he wants me to talk,
He'll show up in me, he'll show up in me.
If I live the way he wants me to live,
He'll show up in me, he'll show up in me.
If I do what he wants me to do,
He'll show up in me, he'll show up in me. Yahshua is the light that shineth in me, that shineth in me. Yahshua is the light that shineth in me, that shineth in me. He'll show out in me, he'll show out in me, he'll show out in me, he'll show out in me.
if I walk the way he wants me to walk,
He'll show up in me, he'll show up in me.
If I talk the way he wants me to talk,
He'll show up in me, he'll show up in me.
If I live the way he wants me to live,
He'll show up in me, he'll show up in me.
If I do what he wants me to do,
He'll show up in me, he'll show up in me. Yahshua is the light that shineth in me, that shineth in me. Yahshua is the light that shineth in me, that shineth in me. He'll show out
oh yes he will,
in me,
he'll
he'll
show
show
oh
out
yes he will,
in me,
he'll
he'll
show
show
oh
out
yes he will,
in me, he'll show out in me.
Yahshua,
Yahshua
The oracles of the UCI. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received a gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you're sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as their children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication, and all uncleanness, or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth, therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Which is peace on the Yahweh's Holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. A lot of times when we get into things, we don't dive completely in and find out exactly how things are being worked out. And one of those things is even walking in this word, because we've heard all of the things that we grew up with. And those things were, as long as you say forgive me on your deathbed, then you're okay. You hear all of these things about the pearly gates, but what you don't hear about is that judgment. You don't hear anything about that judgment. Matter of fact, it has become customary to say at the very death of a person that person is already in heaven. So what is the society pushing? They are pushing glorification without any judgment whatsoever. That you are going to receive all of this, and really none of your deeds are going to come into play. And if you live your life like that, you are going to be completely dismayed when you find out that there is a scorekeeper in the sky. Something that I, even while being in regular church before and not having the understanding of this word, I still grew up with this thing of being told by my mother that was a scorekeeper in the sky. Now, that kind of stuck with me. So then as I get to the word, the scorekeeper in the sky started to make sense. This word says you're going to give an account for every idle word that proceeds out of your mouth. How can that be if there's not a scorekeeper? So now this is starting to make sense. But we, at the same time knowing some of those things, we still decide that we're going to turn a blind eye to how we may be judged. So today's sermon is entitled The Computation of the Salvation Score. It is important that we understand that we are being graded. Now, there's been a lot of talk concerning new moons and Sabbaths as far as how and when we should observe these things. Some people observe the sliver of the moon, while some observe the dark moon. Some even observe the full moon as the new moon, and some have no idea what a new moon is. These differences are some of the very reasons there were separate sects of Israelite worshipers in antiquity, and the same holds true today. We understand that obedience is better than sacrifice, but what we must ask ourselves is, does all obedience carry the same weight? Consider a child in school who has daily work, homework, projects, and tests. Upon each of these things is placed a percentage of how it counts toward the child's overall grade. If daily work counts 10%, homework counts 10%, projects count 40%, and tests count 40%, we can easily conclude if we miss or fail the projects and tests, then we are going to no doubt fail. Although homework and daily work happens more often, it affects a smaller portion of your overall grade. Do we ever meditate on how Yahweh may be evaluating us? When we are on a quest to place obedience over sacrifice, we must consider all things that come into play to give us our overall salvation score. Let's begin today's sermon in 1 Samuel chapter 15. 1 Samuel chapter 15, and we're going to read verses 10 through 23.
Verse 10. Then came the word of Yahweh unto Samuel, saying, It repents me that I have set up Saul to be king, for he's turned back from following me, and has not performed my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried unto Yahweh all night. And when Samuel rose early to meet Saul in the morning, it was told Samuel, saying, Saul came to Carmel, and, behold, he set him up a place, and is gone about, and passed on, and gone down to Gilgal. And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said unto him, Blessed be you of Yahweh. I have performed the commandments of Yahweh.
Now, there seriously is some misunderstanding, because Yahweh is saying it repented him that he has set Saul up. Yet Saul comes face to face with Yahweh's servant and boastfully proclaims how he followed the instructions. So it's clear that he is basing one instruction to a higher priority than another. But he obviously doing it wrong. Go ahead.
And Samuel said, What meaneth then this bleating of the sheep in mine ears, and the lowing of oxen which I hear? And Saul said, They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and of the oxen, to sacrifice unto Yahweh your Elohim. And the rest we've utterly destroyed.
So he received instruction, but then there's the law of sacrifice. So then he allows the law of sacrifice to override the law of the instruction that he was given. Go ahead.
Then Samuel said unto Saul, Stay, and I'll tell you what Yahweh has said to me this night. And he said unto him, Say on. Samuel said, When you was little in your own sight, was you not made the head of the tribes of Israel, and Yahweh anointed you king over Israel? And Yahweh sent you on a journey, and said, Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they be consumed.
Now, this is a different kind of situation, because at this point, he is following something that, or supposed to be following something, for Yahweh's righteous judgment. This then puts Yahweh in a place, because not performing this righteous judgment means that Yahweh now has to get righteous judgment some other way. Go ahead.
Wherefore then did you not obey the voice of Yahweh, but did fly upon the spoil, and did evil in the sight of Yah?
Right, because if Yahweh is having these people to be utterly destroyed, all that stuff got to go. No, this is the judgment that is supposed to happen unto them, but you start picking from it so that you can do something else that you know is a law. So now we got to look into our salvation grade. You put the wrong things in the wrong order. Here it is. You turn around and allowed that thing to override what was supposed to happen with the instructions that I gave to you. I think that's yours, brother.
Hey,
What you think I'm running a marathon?
hey, it might be a long class.
Better give me 2 gallons of water. Am I going through Clemson? What am I? Go ahead, brother.
Where we at? Verse
20, I think.
20. And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of Yahweh, and have gone the way which Yahweh sent me, and have brought Agag the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took of the spoil sheep and oxen, the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice unto Yahweh, your Elohim in Gilgal.
Right. Now, he still believes he's right. He's arguing about how right he is. But I did follow the instructions. But the people took the things. Now, he even believes in the wrongness of the people. They took it to sacrifice to Yahweh. So, pay attention. He's the king. Everything under him, he is responsible for. All right. As men, you are the head of your house. When anything in your house decides that it's going to turn left or right, do not be surprised if Yahweh grabs you in the dark alley and said, why have you not performed the commandment that I have given unto you? And you're like, Yahweh, why? I'm in the sanctuary every week. What are you talking about? I mean, I do such and such, such and such. Maybe that ain't the part of you he talking about. See, everything you attach to you is you. So you might want to be careful how many yous you attach. So you attach 10 yous, then when he say you got to turn around and go through every you and figure out which you is you. And then you got to deal with it. Not just find out. Now you got to deal with it. Because it's you he going to deal with because of you. Everything you marry is you. Everything you bring forth out of your loins is you. So you can have 10 yous. Go ahead.
And Samuel said, As Yahweh is great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of Yah, behold, to obey is better than sacrifice.
To obey is better than sacrifice. So we hear that, but do we understand what that means? Do you have your percentage in the right areas? Because sacrifice is law, especially during this time. But he obeyed something else so that he can do something that he sees happen on the regular. But once Yahweh uttered an instruction, it overrides every other law that he has already put in effect. Everything else takes a backseat. And when we don't really consider that, we are putting ourselves in jeopardy, and the law is what's helping us put ourselves in jeopardy. Go ahead.
And to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as lawlessness and idolatry.
Stubbornness is as idolatry. Check that out. being stubborn, you might as well worship idols. And what is stubborn? Refuse to receive instruction. Refuse to be consoled. Refuse to be educated. No. I know how I want to deal with this, and this is the only way I'm going to deal with it. This is how I feel about it, and I'm not going to listen to anything that's going to change my, right? Stubbornness is as idolatry. You might as well go ahead and take up witchcraft. Go ahead, brother. Did you finish that?
Because you have rejected the word of Yahweh, he has also rejected you from being king.
Right. So then we see that this part of keeping the law actually got him in a deeper situation. Let's go to Exodus chapter 19. Exodus chapter 19, and we're going to read verses 1 through 8.
In the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. For they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness. And there Israel camped before the mount. And Moshe went up unto Elohim, and Yahweh called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel, You have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine.
Now this was conditional. If you obey my covenant. We have a tendency to believe that we should be placed above all people, but don't have to keep the covenant. That's a conditional promise. Go ahead.
And you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, and an holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak unto the children of Israel. And Moshe came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which Yahweh commanded him. And all the people answered together, and said, All that Yahweh has spoken we will do. And Moshe returned the words of the people unto Yahweh.
So we then have agreed to the covenant as a people, as a whole group. We have agreed we will keep all of these things. We understand that being a peculiar treasure is a conditional thing, or at least we understood it when it was given unto us. But after some time, we began to believe that the peculiar treasure is just ours by default, and it ain't even nothing Yahweh can do about it. And he the one gave us the promise. You can't get no more stubborn than that right there. Let's go to Exodus chapter 12.
Exodus chapter 12 and verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the 1st month of the year to you. Speak you unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
All right, so then if we say, we read this and we see that the beginning of our months then is the beginning of our year, we understand that this is the Passover season. So, this is where, sometimes kids, play with their parents with you told me to take out the trash, but then you told me to get to school on time. So I couldn't take out the trash so I could get to school on time. Now you're going to get beat. Because see, what you did was move slowly, then use one of my instructions to not do the other instruction. And you think you playing with me. I'm going to show you, but you want something to play with, you got your toy. You should have got your little something to take for show and tell, because you're going to learn today. So what we do is use one thing to get out of something else, which you saw already with Saul. So this says the beginning of your months. Read the definition of month.
Month from H2320 Kodesh. From H2318, the new moon, by implication a month, monthly new moon.
Now, it is amazing over time, us desiring to hear something new, we get into all these other things. Now, somewhere down the line, a month is not a moon anymore. You know, we have to understand something. We have all of these things on paper. Yahweh had a tangible creation. He has to teach them from a tangible creation of earth. They don't have no paper yet. The stuff that they see is in the sky. We have forgotten that because we got paper. So we're looking down. They were looking up. To this day, the same thing we do. We got that phone. Everybody look down. We're not looking up anymore. We don't even understand up. Now, in the day that the altar was anointed by the princes of Israel, there were 12 chargers of silver, 12 silver bowls, 12 spoons of gold. We also understand that there are 12 tribes of Israel. By this, some have concluded that there are 12 months and there can never be any more or less. We even read about the captains of thousands in 1 Chronicles chapter 27. The order that was set by the king was 12 captains, one for each month. As it is written, my people have a zeal for Elohim, but not according to knowledge. It is written that they are wise to do evil, but to do good they know not. Our biggest mistake is thinking that we understand his law the way he understands his law. Let's go to Exodus chapter 23. You know, sometimes you will go out and listen to people, and they're using one thing to get out of something else that they really don't want to do, quite frankly. Or, at this point, can't do because of something else that they've done. So people who don't like organized gathering, they're going to try to find everything to say, you know, wherever two or more gathered in his name, that he is. So they use that to say that they don't need to be a part of any kind of organized worship. So they get two more hellions like themselves and believe that the church is in their heart. And their heart is absolutely full of slime pits and all these things, but they believe that Yahshua is in the midst because they gathered two more hellions with them. Exodus chapter 23, and I want to read verses 10 through 16.
In 6 years you shall sow your land, and shall gather in the fruits thereof. But the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie still, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beast of the field shall eat. In like manner you shall deal with your vineyard and with your olive yard. 6 days you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and your ass may rest, and the son of your handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed.
Right. The Sabbath is not just supposed to be a delight for you. The Sabbath is supposed to be a delight for everything around you. How do y'all think we began to love Christmas and Easter? All of a sudden, the people who were working you to death, all of a sudden seemed jolly. So these people ain't never happy. All they want is for us to work. Then all of a sudden they decorate. They keep bringing this tree out. And when they bring that tree out, their whole countenance change. They start passing out gifts to one another. Master gave me a piece of chicken. You know how confusing that has to be to a slave who has been getting beaten and worked to the bone every day? And then one day come, and everything changes for about a week. Then he has to abruptly figure out that it's over when he get beat again. But then next year, it happens again. And then next year, it happens again. So now, they're able to tell the young ones, okay, we got about 4 or 5 days. All right. Normally they do a week, but you need to don't take it too far on the week. You're gonna get beat. So we learn. And then we start having some kind of affection for those days, although we don't understand anything about the days. We just know they're the meanest people that we've ever seen. And the overseers were the meanest of the meanest. They went and got the trash of the trash to be overseers. Their job was to be nasty. And all of a sudden, he don't even let the nasty people be nasty. And this is what they were hired to do. Go ahead, brother.
And in all things that I've said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of your mouth. 3 times you shall keep a feast unto me in the year. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded you, in the time appointed of the month of Abib.
Right, we didn't understand. That's the beginning of the year. All right, go ahead.
For in it you came out from Egypt.
Right, so we know in the time that we came out of Egypt, that was supposed to be the beginning of our months. So we know where the beginning of the year biblically starts, during the time of Passover. Go ahead.
And none shall appear before me empty.
Okay, so he's set that. Go ahead.
And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors, which you have sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when you have gathered in your labors out of the field.
Now, the Feast of Ingathering is also known as the Feast of Tabernacles. So then, now we have to ask ourselves, all right? Now, Exodus 12, verses 1 through 3 says the beginning of the month is Abib, which is what we know to be during the time of Passover. Here he mentions the Tabernacles or Feast of Ingathering as the end of the year. Tabernacles clearly happens in the 7th month. How then is this month mentioned as the month of his completion if there are 12 months to a year? It is clear then that he has the year separated as the agricultural year and the other is the civil year. Go to the next graphic and I want you to read something else so that we read a second part where Yahweh talks about the year's end.
Exodus chapter 34 and verse 22. And you shall observe the feast of weeks, of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the year's end.
Okay, so then we have to consider then what part is he talking about when he talks about this year's end? Is he talking about the agricultural year, or is he talking about the civil year? Because clearly that's only 7 months. How are we at the end of the year if we have 12 months to a year? Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 11. Deuteronomy 11, and I want to read verses 7 through 15.
But your eyes have seen all the great acts of Yahweh which he did. Therefore shall you keep all the commandments which I command you this day, that you may be strong and go in and possess the land, whether you go to possess it. And that you may prolong your days in the land which Yahweh sware unto your fathers to give unto them and to their seed, a land that flows with milk and honey. For the land, whether you go in to possess it, is not as the land of Egypt, from whence you came out, where you sowed your seed and watered it with your foot as a garden of herbs.
Watered it with your foot. Now, what he's then about to go into is the the magnificence of the land and how it is fertile. He said you had to go water this with your foot. You gotta go get this stuff. What you have here is going to be totally different. So understand what it is he's speaking of. Go ahead.
But the land, whether you go to possess it, is a land of hills and valleys, and drinketh water of the rain of heaven.
So if it drinks water of the rain of heaven, you ain't got to go in the ground, dig to get water, then carry the water over to the place where you planting. Go ahead.
A land which Yahweh your Elohim cares for. The eyes of Yahweh your Elohim are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year. And it shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently unto my commandments which I command you this day, to love Yahweh your Elohim, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season.
So listen to what he's talking about, all right? That I will give you the rain of your land in his due season. So we have to then ask ourselves a question. A question has to be there. What end of the year is he discussing? Go ahead.
The first rain and the latter rain,
Uh-huh.
that you may gather in your corn and your wine and your oil. And I'll send grass in your fields for your cattle, that you may eat and be full.
All right. So it says that his eyes are on it from the beginning of the year to the end. He is discussing the wealth of the land as far as growing. He's talking about the agricultural year. That's why he mentions tabernacles as the end of the year. I'm making sure that you're not going to starve. It says his eyes are on it from the beginning to the end. So now we find a whole nother year that Yahweh really hadn't discussed. He hadn't discussed any of that. Where you find agriculture year at the end? Where you find that at? He ain't discussed that. But now, you know, we have these people who are trying to really push elements of their Enoch calendar because they have to make Yahweh's year completely broken up into these little blocks that they can understand. Yahweh deals with some things that he ain't even told you about. He said, my eyes are on it from the beginning to the end because I'm going to make sure that you are fed to the full. You ain't got to go get that water like you had to do in Egypt. That water going to flow down to everywhere it needs to be. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1. A lot of times Yahweh gives us something that he knows we are not going to fully understand for another 2, 3, 4 generations. You have to understand at the beginning of this, we're going to go Genesis chapter 1 and verses 14 through 19. Do you understand how long it has taken us to fully understand these 5 verses? Genesis chapter 1, and let's start at verse 14.
And Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
Do you have any idea how much was just said right there? And because we don't understand on a certain level, what we have a tendency to do is make up and fill up the gaps that we don't understand. We know this is here, we know that is there, but then we don't know what's in between. So then we insert something in the gap. It says, and Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. Let them, more than one, be for signs, for seasons, and for days, and for years. This is letting us know our entire calendar system is explained in verse 14. But you know that they don't fully understand that. You got to think about all the time that the people thought the earth was flat. How do you reconcile verse 14 if the earth is flat? Go ahead.
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And Elohim set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day.
Now, there's something you have to think about this last part in verse 19. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. We have this thing that has always been going on within Hebrew culture about whether or not we use the new moon, or whether, we should use the sun calendar. Yahweh clearly said in verse 14, them. So this means that both of them have to be in the equation. And at some point, one is going to override the other in the equation, depending on where you are. Now, the entire observance of biblical time is given to us in 5 verses. When we examine what is being taught today, we find elements of the so-called Enoch calendar merge with Scripture to produce their own timeline. The Scriptures clearly states that there are two great lights. These great lights work in tandem, but there will be times when one overrides the other. The division of day and night happens as the earth rotates toward and then away from the sun. The month is calculated by the orbit of the moon around the earth. The year is calculated by the rotating earth and its orbiting moon as it makes its revolution around the sun. The seasons change as the earth tilts toward or away from the sun during its revolution. Some wish to divide Yahweh's time into perfect little blocks as it suits them. Some are so busy being fixated on how many months there are that they never consider that at some point one part of the equation must override the other. When it comes to the year, the sun overrides the moon because the year is its primary function concerning revolution. We must consider that the month nor the year can be broken down into an even number. We must give Yahweh room to be Yahweh, and not to attempt to put the power of Yahweh inside the tiny mind of a man. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 38. Isaiah chapter 38. And we're going to read verses 1 through 8.
In those days was Hezekiah sick unto death. And Esaias the prophet, the son of Amoz, came unto him and said unto him, Thus says Yahweh, set your house in order, for you shall die and not live. Then Hezekiah turned his face toward the wall.
There ain't nothing else that'll get your attention more than that right there. See, you got all kind of stuff that you focused on, and that seemed really important until you get the death call. You really might have been concerned on whether or not you were going to make your mortgage payment. You were really concerned whether or not, your insurance check with the... But when you get the death call, I guarantee you the mortgage payment will not be what's primarily on your mind. Go ahead.
Then Hezekiah turned his face toward the wall and prayed unto Yahweh, and said, Remember now, O Yahweh, I beseech you, I have walked before you in truth and with a perfect heart.
Now, will we even be in a position to make that claim? See? So this sounds like a man who understood his salvation score. I understand what I'm being graded by. I ain't a perfect man, but in the things concerning what I was supposed to do for you, I did not let not one of them fall. Go ahead.
And have done that which is good in your sight. And Hezekiah wept sore. Then came the word of Yahweh to Esaias, saying, Go and say to Hezekiah.
Now understand now. Whoa. I'm gonna be honest with you. If Yahweh said, Esaac, you gonna die, I guarantee you my prayer would have been longer than that. I ain't gonna even front. The next 8 pages will be our prayer. Yahweh. Yahweh, lady, so bad. Oh, boy, you talking about getting his prayer on? His prayer was rather quick. It was how I've walked before you, in tears. That's it. And Yahweh was obviously moved. Your multitude of word is not moving him. You can say 8 pages of prayer. It didn't move him. All you haven't done, you ain't gonna do. At this point, everything that you speaking of needs to already have been done. So the 8 pages not gonna help you. Let us learn from Hezekiah, because I'm telling you, I wouldn't have done that. And I would have been in error. Because see, this is where your own thing comes in. He does not have a lot of words here. There are points where Dawid is saved from things. He might have a song that's 18 pages long. There's a part where you like, Dawid, just shut up. He got death. And it's one of the shortest prayers you're going to read in here. Go ahead.
Then came the word of Yahweh to Esaias, saying, Go and say to Hezekiah, Thus say Yahweh, the El of Dawid your father, I have heard your prayer, I have seen your tears.
Yeah, Now, he didn't go crying to everybody else. He went crying to who it mattered for him to cry to. He didn't go pull people out the highway and go cry to them. Get out your car, I want to tell you something. Stop the car. Stop the car. Get out. Come on. Let me cry to you. No. He knew who to cry to. And now, I got to pull up my salvation score, and I want you to look at it. I know I ain't been perfect, but can you, do I have to die? And apparently Yahweh looked at his score and looked at his tears. And now he said, well, let's have a conversation. Go ahead.
I have seen your tears. Behold, I'll add unto your days 15 years.
Come on now. Now they talking about catching the Holy Ghost. That little fake Holy Ghost they talking about. Let me tell you something. Right here, if this was the book of Esaac, and he danced all the way down Glenwood. Went right past the car wash. What? They done had a whole nother book right here for the book of Esaac, right here. He done told me he gonna give me 15 years more after I was finna die. Go ahead.
And I'll deliver you and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria, and I'll defend this city. And this shall be a sign unto you from Yahweh, that Yahweh will do this thing that he has spoken. Behold, I'll bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz 10 degrees backward. So the sun returned 10 degrees, by which degrees it was gone down.
So if you're in your Enochian calendar setup and you are starting to put your time into all these perfect little blocks, where in your equation does it provide for Yahweh when he decides to disrupt something? What part of your equation is that? Did you finish that?
Yes. Verse
All
11.
right. So let's now go to Joshua chapter 10. So let's see what part of the equation this is. Let's see if we know about E equals MC squared. Now let's see if there's a biblical equation. Joshua chapter 10, and we're going to read verses 1 through 14.
Now it came to pass, when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Yahshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so he had done to Ai and her king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them.
Now, you have to listen to some of this. Now, remember, how Gibeon begot to, be protected by Israel, because they tricked Israel. Mm-hmm. We agreed, then we found out who they were later. But now they are amongst the other people of those lands. Now those people want to kill them. Go ahead.
That they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all the men thereof were mighty. Wherefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent unto Homan, king of Hebron, and unto Piram, king of Yarmouth, and unto Japhia, king of Lachish, and unto Deber, king of Eglon, saying, Come up unto me and help me, that we may smite Gibeon, for it has made peace with Yahshua and with the children of Israel.
Right, it has made peace with the children of Israel, so we're in danger. Now understand, the peace that they've made with Israel, they are servants. But look at what Yahweh does for the servants. Go ahead.
Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmouth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered themselves together and went up, they and all their hosts, and encamped before Gibeon, and made war against it. And the men of Gibeon sent unto Joshua to the camp of Gilgal, saying, Slack not your hand from your servants. Come up to us quickly, and save us, and help us, for all the kings of the Amorites that dwell in the mountains are gathered together against us. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all the people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor.
Now, understand now, this we read not too long ago where Yahweh dealt with Saul for some things that he had done to the Gibeonites. Yahweh's sending Joshua to go to war for some servants. Go ahead.
And Yahweh said unto Joshua, Fear them not, for I have delivered them into your hand. There shall not a man of them stand before you. Joshua therefore came on to them suddenly, and went up from Gilgal all night. And Yahweh discomfited them before Israel, and slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goes up to Beth-Haran, and smote them to Azekah, and on to Makkedah. And it came to pass, as they fled from before Israel, and were in the going down to Beth-Haran, that Yahweh cast down great stones from heaven upon them, unto Azekah, and they died. They were more which died with hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. Then spake Joshua to Yahweh in the day when Yahweh delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand you still upon Gibeon, and you, moon, in the valley of Ayalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Yasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day.
All right, so we got something different going on right now. Go ahead.
And there was no day like that before it or after it. The Yahweh hearkened unto the voice of a man, for Yahweh fought for Israel.
So Yahweh hearkened to the voice of a man and stop time. There's some things that we have to examine here. To stop this, it says the sun and the moon. That means he used both of them to stop. Now, you have people that have this confusion as to they don't understand or don't want to deal with how something is how the sun and the moon comes into play. It said what? When it dealt with your day, when we read in Genesis 1 and 14, it said the evening and the morning were the third day. The evening and the morning were the fourth day. The evening and the morning were the fifth day. So on and so on, right? Part of that evening is in darkness. The morning is in light. It takes the sun and the moon to make one day. It took light and dark. The whole day not light, the whole day not dark. Mm-hmm. It takes both of them to make one day. Why would you think that it wouldn't take both of them to make a year? Sometimes we get so intelligent that we take away some of the stuff that we're supposed to have. I want you to, let's go to Isaiah chapter 1.
Seven 13.
Isaiah chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 1 through 20.
The vision of Esaias the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Yehuda and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Yehuda. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for Yahweh hath spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knows his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel does not know, my people does not consider. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with lawlessness, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken Yahweh, they have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger, they are gone away backward. Why should you be stricken anymore?
Why should you be stricken anymore? He's at the point where he said, I don't even want to whoop you. Whooping you does no good. I already whooped you. Go ahead.
You will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick and the whole heart faint. From the sole of the foot even unto the head there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Your country is desolate, your cities are burnt with fire, your land strangers devoured in your presence, and it is desolate, as overthrown by strangers. And the daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. Except the Yahweh of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, and we should have been likened unto Gomorrah.
Should have. Go ahead.
Hear the word of Yahweh, you rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of our Elohim, you people of Gomorrah. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, says Yahweh? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he-goats. When you come to appear before me, who has required this at your hand to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Shabbats, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with.
I cannot away with. Yet, go ahead.
It is lawlessness, even the solemn meeting.
Right. So then, no matter how you keep, and I've tried to get people to understand this, you have, some people that keep the new moon this way, they keep the new moon that way, or they keep the new moon this way. What Yahweh is interested in, what kind of heart did you bring to the new moon? Not once have we read, well, he's talking about all of these things. He said, you know what? You keep that new moon on the sliver, I'm going to throw you in the lake of fire. You keep the new moon on. There's really not a whole lot of information as to when and how to keep the new moon. More, rather, he's dealing with the status of your heart when you showed up. We're so busy trying to figure out when we should show up that we didn't think about how we should show up. The stuff that he's dealing with, not one time As he said, you did it on the second and it should have been the third. You're going to die. You're going to definitely die. Not a damn time. Go ahead.
Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hates. They are a trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. And when you spread forth your hands, I'll hide my eyes from you. Yes, when you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. Wash you, make you clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil.
Right. Not one date is in this stuff that he's talking about. Not one. So you see what he finds important there. When we deal with the percentage scale. Don't have this argument about times and dates. Get out my face with that. Let's deal with the weightier matters of the law. Go ahead.
Learn to do well. Seek judgment. Relieve the oppressed. Judge the fatherless. Plead for the widow. Come now, and let us reason together, says Yahweh. Though your sin be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If you be willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of Yahweh has spoken it.
Right. I want you to read that from Colossians in the next graphic.
Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16. Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of any holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Shabbat, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body of the Mashiach.
But the body is of the Mashiach. So then when we look at these things, we understand what we're supposed to be doing. But we're too busy focusing on whether or not we have the time right, that we're not really dealing with sometimes how we deal with these things. And that is a problem. Let's go to James chapter 2.
Verse 8.
No, we're going to read verses from 8 to 13. Okay. James chapter 2, and we're going to start at verse 8.
If you fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, you do well.
Right. So you can come to all the new moons if you want to. You can come to all the Shabbat classes. Is it commanded for us to do so? It is. But what heart and countenance did you bring to any of those things? Go ahead.
But if you have respects to persons, you commit sin and are convinced of the law as transgressors. For whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all.
Now, listen to the things he mentioned there. Go ahead.
For he that said, do not commit adultery, said also, do not kill.
He said, make sure you're there on the first. Go ahead.
Now, if you commit no adultery, yet if you kill, you are become a transgressor of the law.
He said you better be there on the fifth.
So speak you, and so do, as they that shall be judged by the law of liberty.
It better not be on the slip.
For he shall have judgment without mercy. That has showed no mercy, and mercy rejoice against judgment.
So then he's telling us what's important to him then. He's giving us then his grading scale. He didn't say that you can leave the other undone. What he's saying is, I'm showing you the percentage of your grade and where your grade gonna count. So if you're gonna miss something, it better be that 10% thing. And make sure you take care of them things that count 40% of your grade. Go ahead.
That was it, verse 13, right?
Yeah. All right. So Now, we must examine the level of importance of things if we're going to make sure to get the highest salvation score in the eyes of Yahweh. We must examine if something is truly a salvation issue. The new moon is clearly mentioned as something that we must observe. We have very few instructions, though, on how to observe it. On the flip side, we have an enormous number of instruction concerning other things, thus allowing us to have a basis point for his righteous judgment. New moon is mentioned in 10 verses. Adultery, though, is used in 33 verses, while fornication is used in 32 verses. The Sabbath is used in 116 verses. We tend to keep mentioning things that are most important to us, and it is no different with the creator of all things. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. First Corinthians chapter 12, and we're going to read verses 12 through 26.
Verse 12. For as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is the Mashiach.
And you have to really look at something and to make sure that you understand what you're seeing. When my elder was alive, there was a whole lot of people, that were around him that I thought was really on his team. When he passed, I realized that those people went against everything that he set up. And when I backtracked, I realized that they were going against it while he was alive. He would put forth one thing, they would slickly put forth something else. But once he was gone, they got bolder in going against the things that he set up. And what's ironic is they use his face, likeness, and image as they are teaching the exact opposite of what he set forth as a foundation. Israel something else. Go ahead.
The sad thing about it, the scripture tells you, beware how you build on another man's foundation. Because this man is now gone, and I'm sure some things that he would not allow to be back on him as far as the face of that is
Right.
now being posted. Such as like we're talking about this class here. What is one of the classes that they're pushing up on his old stuff where somebody put out something, the new moon is not a new year?
Uh-huh.
And I saw the video and I'm like, how did this fly? It's flying because he's no longer here.
But you know what? A lot of that stuff was slickly done. You got to think about, have we watched every video that has come out from up under us? We might be doing something else and somebody put something out. And what happens is sometimes people are fighting against you the whole time. And I remember some things that he told me, and now it makes sense. I said, oh. No, he knew what he was working with. But he didn't have time to watch everything. This is why each person is given. And this is why we put stuff on other individuals in the congregation. It's not one person's job to do everything. It's only one person that can tell somebody, oh, no, man, you're not together. You can't come in here. Now, if I'm doing something else, why I got to be the one to come out the back? Stop what I'm doing to do what the porter is supposed to be doing. That's who we call security or porters. The porters stand at the gate. Now, why the priest got to walk from the offering to go and do what the porter's supposed to be doing at the gate? Go ahead.
It goes back to verse 12, for as the body is one and has many members, then you
Right.
got to ask yourself, do you feel like you're a member of the body?
Right. Or you feel like you are the body. I'm the head and the feet, the toes, the eyes, the nose, and the lips. What? You all that? Go ahead.
For by one Spirit are we all baptized into one body, whether we be Yehudis or Gentiles, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink into one Spirit. For the body is not one member, but many. If the foot shall say, because I'm not the hand, I'm not of the body, is it therefore not of the body?
Right, right. So in other words, the foot feeling itself. That's what we do. Especially if something, if we got some issue going on. I don't want to be a part of the body no more. What's the matter? I'm swelling. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
And if the ear shall say, because I am not the eye, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? If the whole body were an eye, where were the hearing? If the whole were hearing, where were the smelling? But now has Elohim set the members, every one of them, in the body, as it has pleased him. And if they were all one member, where were the body? But now are they many members, yet but one body. And the eye cannot say unto the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the foot, I have no need of you.
Right. So we're going to have to give every member the space to be them and do what they do. You can't magnify yourself over them because their job is different from yours or their view of something is different than yours. Now their view is trash because it ain't yours. Then you have decided that you are no longer a part of the body. You are the body. Go ahead.
It's interesting. It says, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. But the head actually controls everything.
Right.
And if the foot slacking off, it can say, you know what? All right, you want to slack off? I'm going to move resources somewhere else. But we don't see how our whole body is actually a company.
Right.
A business.
And each part of that has to work. Whenever one foot decides it's not going to work, another foot got to work double time. And sooner or later, that other foot is in pain. Even though one of them swole. So it decides to start working. Now you hopping on the other. Well, guess what happened when you hop on the one? Because now it's doing the job that 2 feet supposed to do. Same thing that happens when we decide to go AWOL. Now somebody else got to carry that. So somebody else sold. Why? Right? Because they got to walk for 2 legs, but they ain't got but one. Where the other leg at? Well, it said they had something to do. They went to a leg convention. Oh, they want to hang out with other legs? So they left the leg that they're a part of to do everything by itself. So then when it sees that leg again next week, and the leg also, the other leg that went to the convention don't understand what the problem is. Why you got a problem? Man, I'm sold because you went to a convention. Go ahead.
Verse 22. Nay, much more those members of the body which seem to be more feeble are necessary. And those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, upon these we bestow more abundant honor. And our uncomely parts have more abundant comeliness.
Right. Because no matter what level you lay place on something, you really know the importance when it start working. Man, there's some things in your body that you can't even pronounce. Let it start working. It is going to have all your focus at that point. Every time you turn to the left, you fall on the ground. You're like, what the hell going on? You go to the doctor and they say, yeah, man, the certain part in your brain ain't working. Oh, you about to research that part. You didn't know it was there. But you knew when it stopped working. Because you kept hitting the ground. So that part that you didn't even know, it had no honor. Now you got to bestow great honor on it. Because they ain't working no more. And then you got to figure out how to get around it. If you can. Go ahead.
For our comely parts have no need, but Elohim has tempered the body together, having given more abundant honor to that part which lacks. That there should be no schism in the body.
Schism in the body. Schism in the body, there's ease, and then there's dis-ease or disease. Which one of us wants to be a disease in the body? Go ahead.
But that the members should have the same care one for another.
Oh, so I can't just care about the things that are important to me. I got to also care how what I do affects the next man's job. I have to care about what I do, how it affects that sister's job over there. Huh. Go ahead.
And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it, or one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it.
Uh-huh. Did you finish that?
Yep.
All right, let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 8. So if one suffer, we all suffer. It's hard to teach the selfish about dealing with everything as a whole. It is exceptionally difficult to teach that to the selfish. Because all the selfish know is self. Every bit of pain, you can't tell the selfish about pain because that's all they know is their pain. And they think that their pain overrides all the pain on the earth. There ain't no pain but their pain. Ain't nobody else hurting. Ain't nobody else going through nothing. Just them. But that's not how the body works. The body can't revolt against another part of the body. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, and we're going to read verses 6 through 13.
But to us there is but one Elohim, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one Adonai Yahshua HaMashiach, by whom are all things, and we by him. Howbeit there is not in every man that knowledge. For some, with conscience of the idol unto this hour, eat as a thing offered unto an idol. Eat it as a thing offered unto an idol. And their conscience being weak is defiled. But meat commendeth us not to Elohim, for neither if we eat are we the better, neither if we eat not are we the worse.
So there are certain things that really don't carry no weight, whether it's left or right. So why do we place so much emphasis on it? Why does it become such a schism if it doesn't really matter? Then at that point, we're just trying to be right. Go ahead.
But take heed, lest by any means this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak. For if any man see you which has knowledge sit at meat in the idol's temple, shall not the conscience of him which is weak be emboldened to eat those things which are offered to idols?
So then we have to then watch how we carry ourselves in front of those that don't have certain strengths. But here's where that becomes difficult. The ones who don't have certain strengths pretend like they do. But then hold you accountable when they fall. Go ahead.
And through your knowledge shall the weak brother perish, for whom the Mashiach died. But when you sin so against the brethren, and wound their weak conscience, you sin against the Mashiach. Wherefore, if meat make my brother to offend, I'll eat no flesh while the world stands, lest I make my brother to offend.
Right. But what that entails is your brother has to be honest with you enough to let you know what his weakness is. If he's pretending that the weakness is a strength, how do you know not to even bring that around your brother? Your brother acting like he don't have a problem with liquor. You bring some liquor around, and now you got to carry him out of there. Man, why you didn't tell me that this was your thing? I wouldn't have brought this if I'd have known you were going to drink every bit of it, then fall in love with every cat, dog, and gerbil in the house. So how do you even know? So you have to watch your brother. Because your brother won't always tell you what his weaknesses are. But if you wound a weak conscience, Yahweh's still going to hold you accountable. And that puts us sometimes in a very difficult position. That means you might have to jump in your brother's face and find out, is this one of your weaknesses or not? Because if that's so, then you can't come to this thing that we about to do. Because I got a job to do when I get there, and I can't watch you 24/7. But let us hear the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 6. Proverbs chapter 6. And we're going to start that at verse 1.
My son, if you be surety for your friend, if you have stricken your hand with a stranger, you are snared with the words of your mouth, you are taken with the words of your mouth. Do this now, my son, and deliver yourself, when you are come into the hand of your friend. Go, humble yourself, and make sure your friend. Give not sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids.
So do this, my son, and deliver yourself when you are coming to the hand of your friend. Go humble yourself and make sure your friend. Do you know the difference between a friend and an acquaintance? See, a lot of people really think they have 2,000 friends. No, that's on Facebook. Those are not real friends. When you and your friend post instead of talk, that's not a friend. See, I don't actually talk about what Kish posts. We actually talk. We will call somebody a friend. We don't even have their number to text them. So we'll override a real friend to go and deal with a fake one. Go ahead.
You know what's funny about that texting thing? Sometimes we'll be in the middle of text. You know what the hell with this? Hey man, what's going on?
I did it the other day and then looked up a couple of days later and you got a half a text on your phone. Because I got to the point where I didn't say it. That, hey, bruh. But then I look back and I'm about to send a half a sentence because now I want to text you for real. Then I realized that 3 days ago text is halfway. And if I hit send there, you going to think, Esaac has lost his mind. This dude just sent half a sentence. Now that was when I just decided, the hell with this. Let me get him on the phone. Go ahead.
Verse 5. Deliver yourself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provides her meat in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. How long will you sleep, O sluggard? When will you arise out of your sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall your poverty come as one that travaileth, and your want as an armed man.
Right, so that means that about the business that we're supposed to be about, then there needs to be some kind of diligence. So how are you back in poverty? Go ahead.
A naughty person, a wicked man, walks with a froward mouth. He winks his eyes, he speaks with his feet, he teaches with his fingers. Frowardness is in his heart. He devises mischief continually, he sows discord. Therefore shall his calamity come suddenly. Suddenly shall he be broken without remedy. These 6 things does Yahweh hate. Yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look,
Somebody who don't show up on the right day.
a lying tongue,
Somebody who didn't keep the first on the first.
and a hands that shed innocent blood.
Wait a minute, he ain't talking about no dates then, huh? He let you know what he ate. What did he let you know how the computation of your salvation grade is being computed. So why we, 20 years later, trying to figure out new ways to keep the new moon? Do you even understand what are you being graded on? But you have to understand, to people who have either lost or got kicked out of their gathering spot, then they have no need for any gathering. You understand? Because they've been ran off from those spots. Be careful, at least you get sucked into somebody else's situation, because it benefits them to push that situation. Go ahead.
An heart that devises wicked imaginations, feet that be swift to running to mischief.
A heart that devises wicked imaginations. Ain't nothing happened. You just devised something in your brain and then went forward to execute from the thought that you had. And let me tell you something. Thoughts, hey, we know how strong thoughts can be. A dream is just a thought with you laying down. But if you dream the wrong thing, you won't be able to come to church. That dream was a little dick. But what was it? It was a wicked imagination. Who was in that imagination? Did that person belong to somebody else? Right. See, all wicked imaginations ain't in the daytime. Go ahead.
A false witness that speaks lies, and he that sows discord among brethren. My son, keep your father's commandment, and forsake not the law of your mother. Bind them continually upon your heart, and tie them about your neck. When you goeth, it shall lead you. When you sleepeth, it shall keep you. And when you awaketh, it shall talk with you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. To keep you from the evil woman, from the flattery of the tongue of a strange woman. Lust not after her beauty in your heart, neither let her take you with her eyelids.
The beauty of a man could subdue him more than the muscles of another man. The strength of Samson was subdued easily. Could nobody beat his secret out of him. But that woman sure could get it out. Go ahead.
I just looking at this situation, right? He says, my son, keep your father's commandment and forsake not the law of your mother. Bind them continually upon your heart and tie them about your neck. Why didn't he just say, put your fringes on?
Hey, bro. But that's also one of those things where they make the fringe the law instead of what the fringe is supposed to represent. So once again, we gon' strain out a gnat and swallow a camel. That is exactly one of those things where we forget exactly what the purpose is supposed to be. We're so busy arguing about fringes. A brother will come up to you, ask you why you don't have fringes on. Yet, he have on a shirt that have a picture of the Messiah, and it looked like some dude that he went to school with. Bruh, you got an idol on with fringes at the bottom of the idol shirt. So, you got on fringes that's supposed to remind you to keep the law, but if I go 4 inches above the fringe, you breaking the very law that the fringe is supposed to remind you of. You can't get no more confused than that. Go ahead.
Verse 26. For by means of a whorish woman a man is brought to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will hunt for the precious life. Can a man take fire in his bosom, and his clothes not be burnt? Can one go up on hot coals, and his feet not be burnt? So he that goes into his neighbor's wife, Whosoever touches her shall not be innocent. Men do not despise a thief if he steal to satisfy his soul when he's hungry.
You know, you have to look at what he says here. Verse 29, so he that goes into his neighbor's wife, whosoever touches her, shall not be innocent. Then verse 30, men do not despise a thief if he steal to satisfy his soul when he's hungry. How does he go to a thief from one who went unto his neighbor's wife?
Still stealing.
Oh, you stealing. But he say, you don't despise a thief if he hungry. But can you be hungry for something that don't belong to you? A hunger for your wife. He's gonna starve to death. Go ahead.
But if he be found, he shall restore sevenfold. He shall give all the substance of his house. But who commits adultery with a woman lacks understanding. He that does it destroys his own soul.
So then, Yahweh begins to let you know where the importance level is. Why is it that we don't have whole Proverbs and Psalms about dates? She's letting you know the importance level of your grade. There are certain things, all right, you do this as a congregation. Now after that, move on. You have those that want to teach history and prophecy. That's all fine and dandy. But that's not what's going to get you your salvation score. You can tell him a million things that happened in the past. That glorified you. But how are you operating in your present? You can quote as many scriptures as you can have you some scripture study cards so you can quote them all day. But that ain't how you're being graded. And when you understand that there's a judgment, there has to be a grade. Go ahead.
A wound and dishonor shall he get, and his reproach shall not be wiped away. For jealousy is the rage of a man, therefore he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will not regard any ransom, neither will he rest content, though you giveth many gifts.
Though you give many gifts, though you say many things, it will not persuade him when it comes down to dealing with that business. So let us let everybody be convinced in their own heart that there is a way in which we are being judged, and this judgment is either a passing score or a failing. Ain't no in between. And when the game is over, ain't no extra credit. You can't go back and do extra credit after everything is over. All extra credit got to be done during the time that the grade is being tallied. That's all that we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.